Hey guys, this is going to be our first attempt at a how-to video. You guys have seen in some of our other videos that we've gotten a high-pitched squeal that is coming from our clutch area. Well, we've got it narrowed down to two things. Clutch, primary and secondary clutch alignment, which we're going to show you guys how to do today. And if that doesn't work, we're going to have to go with a different secondary. So bear with us. This is our first attempt at trying to walk you guys through how to do something. But a few of you have commented on some of our videos and said that your machine's doing the same thing, making the same noise. Well, hopefully this is going to help. Hopefully this is going to fix it. If not, you guys will know in our video tomorrow. We're heading back to Tackett Creek tomorrow, so maybe it fixes it. If not, we're going to have to get us another secondary. So I've been in contact with Todd at Hunter Works. He's been really good to kind of tell me some things to look for. He's starting us out trying to go the least expensive route first, which, you know, you got to give the guy props for that. Instead of just saying, no, your whole clutch system's junk, you need to just go ahead and replace it all. Even if you do that, you still got to align your primary and secondary. So that's what we're going to do today. If you'll notice, I've got this thing on some furniture dollies. That just makes it easier to move around here in the garage because we've got the Mustang over there and my truck usually parks here, and it's just easier that way. So we'll go ahead and answer that question for you before you ask. So what we plan on using today, obviously a jack with some wood blocks to make sure that we can get the suspension to come off the ground, a couple of jack stands, a pry bar, a hammer. You know, you got to have a hammer if things don't go your way. That way you can beat on something. Got to have a 7/8 inch socket for the clutch puller tool. Then we'll have the 21 millimeter socket for the clutch bolt, a 19 millimeter socket and wrench for the shock, 15 millimeter socket for the secondary clutch, some extensions, a 1/2 inch drive torque wrench and a 3/8 torque wrench, just because the 3/8 gets into some places a little bit better. 3/8 ratchet, our handy dandy Hunter Works alignment tool, couple of torque sticks, a little 1/4 inch screwdriver, just so you don't over tighten the bolts on your clutch cover. That's handy. Your clutch cover bolts are all 8 millimeter. Your bolts that hold the secondary clutch cover on, or not the secondary, the inner clutch cover are 10 millimeter. So have that. And then the hose clamps are 1/4 inch. And helps to have a air compressor and just a nozzle to blow your clutches out while you've got them off. Rubber mallet, just because sometimes it doesn't do as much damage as a regular hammer. Other than that, got your belt tool and a Scotch-Brite pad for your sheaves. That should be it. So the first thing that we're going to do, we've got to get the wheel and tire off. Then we're going to remove the bottom shock mount bolt, and then we're going to get the this vent tube or intake tube, whatever, off. And then we're gonna get the outside cover, belt cover off. And then we'll pull the belt, pull the clutches, and then we'll have to take the inside belt cover housing off. So let's jump into it. So this bolt, this bottom bolt is 19 millimeter. We're gonna take it off. Gotta pull my limit strap off too. So we'll get that out of there. So one thing to make this a little bit easier to get this bolt out, if you'll jack this up to take a little pressure off of your shock, then it just falls right out. So this bolt is a 10 millimeter. All of these are 8 millimeter, and this hose clamp is 8 millimeter. So that'll save you some time looking if you've never had this thing off before. And I'm just using a drill because it's faster. When you start tightening this back up, and we'll remind you here in a second, you will strip these out. These are just going into plastic. So there's no nut on the back of them. They just coarse thread into that plastic. So I would probably, I mean, it's your machine obviously, but just be careful. Maybe use like a hand tool or something to where you can tell when it snugs up. Alright, that guy's loose. Now some of you guys know too that when you go to take this crazy cover off on the trail, it just don't come off. But in the garage, it always comes off so nice and easy. And probably want to, before you put it back on, maybe clean it out. I don't know how long it's been since we've cleaned ours. It's not real dirty, but got that belt dust everywhere. Now, I like to take this thing, it's real rubbery, and just kind of shove it up here out of my way. And obviously you got your primary and your secondary clutch. In order to get the primary and secondary off, obviously have to take the belt off. So I'll do that real quick. Any of y'all know how annoying these guys are. But that just takes some of the, it spreads the sheaves out a little bit where you can walk your belt off. There you go. Now, this is something else that everybody says is really important. Obviously it came off like that. Make sure you put it back on like that. Thing that I like to do is take like a Sharpie or something and just draw me an arrow for the direction that it rotates. You can see right here that Polaris is upside down on the top. So when I go to put it back on, I want to make sure that Polaris is upside down on the top. I'll just hang it that way here on the back of the machine so I don't forget. So we're gonna pull this secondary off. It's a 15 millimeter. We're just gonna zip it off here with the impact. Take that bolt out. And this should just slide right off. So we're gonna take the primary off next. It is a 21 millimeter. I'm just going to take it off with the impact tube. And notice how this comes off. You've got your washer, and then you've got that spacer. So I'm just going to leave it all together just like that. You've got to have a clutch puller tool, and this is what mine looks like. I'm not 100% sure where I even got this thing. It's Super ATV, maybe Hunter Works, maybe Rocky Mountain ATV. I'm not even sure, but just order the one for an XP 1000. Thread it in. Pretty much all you're doing with this tool is you're just going to pop the clutch off of the shaft. And this one is a 7/8. So, did you hear it? Hopefully you heard it. It just popped it right off. So then we'll unthread it and slide this whole primary clutch off. And then you can see in here that I really bad need to clean that out. You can see some of the dust in it. Should have been done long before now. But we like to ride. So sometimes we forget stuff like that. Now and then a manufacturer does something that actually makes sense. These bolts are also 10 millimeter, just like that guy. So you still have this hose clamp right here that has to come off. So remember when we were just bragging on when a manufacturer does something that makes sense? I take it back. Because now we've gone to standard 1/4 inch for this hose clamp. So once you get that off, don't panic, it's just a vent tube. I thought I'd ripped it loose from something else, but that's all it is. And it just goes right there. At least they used all the same size hose clamps. And we should come off. Okay. Everything is off. Now, one thing that I would be careful about, and this is, make sure you get all the sticks and leaves and all that good stuff out there. A little bit of mud. Really easy to grease your output shaft from the transmission while you're in here, but and the oil filter. Everything's so easy to get to without that black cover on here. But what I was going to say, be careful with this stuff, because you don't want to pull on any of your wiring too much. And if you'll notice on the top of this cover, I guess that's what this stuff's for, you've got little channels that those wires lie in. See a little bit of belt rash there. So now we're going to take our handy dandy Hunter Works clutch alignment tool, and supposedly from the center to the center is 10.5 inches. So you can see kind of how it's tapered on one side, so it slides up on that shaft really well. And this one also goes to about right there. So if my clutches were perfectly aligned, we've not loosened anything yet, this should slide over both of these. And it doesn't hardly go. I mean, you can force it and manipulate it a little bit, but it's still off just a little. So that should go all the way down onto it like so. And it doesn't, so we're gonna loosen a few bolts. We're gonna wiggle it around and see if we can get it lined up perfect. Okay, so these two bolts are 16 millimeter also. We're just gonna loosen those and then we'll go around to the other side and I'll show you what we're gonna loosen over there. Not taking them all the way out, just loosen them up a little bit. So over here, may come over here, you've got these 4 bolts that need to be loosened up. You've got this one, that one, and then this one back behind there. So those 4 just need to be loosened, and then we'll go over the torque specs on how to get them all back. The 2 that are facing the back of the machine, I had to loosen those up with a ratchet because there's just no getting any impact in there without taking a bunch of other stuff off that I don't know that we really need to take off. So those 2 are loose, and I think we can get an impact on the other 2. And there's an order that you put them back on. I'll go over that here in a minute. So there's an order that these have to go back on, but as far as taking them off, we just want to loosen them up. Oop, and taking that one completely out. Okay, all good. Pucker factor there for a second. I didn't think I was supposed to take it all the way loose. Just loosen the bolts up a little bit. Okay, so now let's go around to the other side. See what we can do. Now that everything is loose, we're gonna fit this guy on here and take this rubber mallet and tap it on there where it goes. I'm just a little bit too OCD about scratching stuff, so we'll put us a rag there to keep from scratching the frame. So you can see when you move this, all this stuff kind of gives a little bit. So we didn't have to do very much prying at all to get this to sit on here. You can see this goes back, may have like a thumb width there on the back. And if you'll look, you can see on this primary, you've got just a little bit of it sticking out. So we're gonna go through, we're gonna tighten everything back up, and lastly, we'll pull off the alignment tool. So we almost never got this thing off a second ago. But on the video from Todd, he says to only put it to right here, right where the threads, right where the grooves stop. Well, you can see that that's not going to work here unless this thing's warped from the factory, and I doubt it is. So we're going to slide it on up there just a little bit to where this is flush and this is flush. And that should have everything in perfect alignment. Now, with that being said, Polaris recommends torquing these bolts down on this side first before you move to the other side. So that's what we're going to do, and they're supposed to be torqued at 64 foot-pounds. Okay, so now that we've got everything lined up, we're going to torque this to 64 foot-pounds. All right, that one's good. And that one's good. So on this side, we're going to start with the bottom bolt facing toward the rear of the machine. We're going to get it snug, and then we're going to tighten the two side bolts going in this way. Those are going to go to 45, and then we're going to come back and we're going to hit this one. I'm sorry, 44. This one at 44, and then the one that we start with at 44. So we're just going to barely get him snug. We have to get us an extension for this. I feel like when you're torquing something, that the longer extension you have, the less accurate the amount of torque is. So I'm going to try to shorten it down just a little. Okay, everything's torqued to 44 foot-pounds over here, 64 on the other side. So it should be good. Everything should be lined up perfectly. Now let's see if we can get this guy off. Well, that came off real nice and easy. Now, we start putting her back together and hope for the best. So these actually torque to 12 foot-pounds instead of 8. There we go. So we'll put this hose back on. And it's got a groove on it right here that needs to line back up to right there. Make sure we don't have anything pinched anywhere. primary. So that should be all clean. One other thing that I've heard people do is take a Scotch-Brite pad to these sheaves, and I don't know if it helps to rough them up a little bit. I did that once before. I don't know that it helped any or if it just cleans them a little bit, but since we've got them off, we'll go ahead and do that. You can tell that it kind of scores it a little, but how much that helps, I don't know. So we've got this blown out. I just took the Scotch-Brite pad to the sheaves, so that one should be good. Reinstall our primary. And this torques to 96 foot-pounds. So it's really hard to hold that to 96 foot-pounds. I've got a trick. Okay, so torque sticks, your best friend in something like this. So we're gonna torque this guy down to 95. I know it said 96, but we'll try to hit it one more time. So 65 pound. Just gotta try to snug them up. All right. And we wanted our Polaris upside down, like that. Primary first. Now you always want to spin that a little bit so it kind of gets your belt where it needs to go. Now I'm backing my drill all the way off to 1 on these, just because they strip really easy. And even then, I'll probably hand tie them. So next we'll put our hose back on. Well, we've got our 8mm handy. We'll go ahead and get this bottom one on. Shock in there. shock, washer, spacer, washer. So shock, limit strap, $70 foot-pounds. Here we go. Let's button this back up. So that should pretty much do it. We're going to drop it down off the jack stands and take it outside and see if it still makes noise. So this is the moment of truth. I didn't hear it pulling out of the garage, but it's not to say it's not going to happen. We're in low.